I fell for this hot busker in the subway. Each time I'd listen to just one song and Venmo him 14 bucks. Eventually, I started sending money even when I didn't go see him. He began sending me private voice recordings, and I thought, got him hooked. Until that day at the music store when I overheard 3 guys talking about a piano. You still haven't closed the deal with that $14 lady? The bet ends in 3 days. Loser pays 50 grand. Shut up. Women like her come running with just a flick of my wrist. That's when I realized they were betting on me. So I made my own wager. I'd get all 3 of them within a month. After my divorce, I developed a hobby, taming puppies. Not actual puppies, but those beautiful, obedient, naive, foolish young men who act like puppies. That's why I relocated my music store next to the Performing Arts College. Perfect for hunting. I'd already picked my target. That subway busker I'd been crushing on. Slim waist, long legs, sitting cross-legged on the ground with his guitar. Barely looking up yet always drawing crowds of college girls. The first time we met, I tossed him a coin to make him look up. Brown curly hair, long eyelashes, deep voice, totally gorgeous. He held that coin between his fingers, flicked it with his thumb, and it landed right down my low-cut top. He jumped up flustered. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I glanced down at myself then back at him. Guess you won't be getting this money back right away. His cheeks flushed crimson. I Venmo'd him $14. That night, I got a friend request. His name was Alan, a music student. Not many gym selfies on his Instagram. No photos with female friends. Seemed innocent enough. After that, I deliberately passed through the subway after work. Each time, just one song and $14. Alan asked why 14. I said because he sang love songs. Don't you know why I sing love songs? I knew, but I kept quiet. After adding me, his abs pics suddenly became a daily occurrence. It's because they're popular, I finally replied. He went silent. As time passed, I gradually stopped going but still sent money. $14 became my emotional anchor for him. Alan sent me private song recordings. Check this out. Sounds beautiful. I thought you were getting bored of me. It's not on my way anymore. It was on your way last month, but not this month? The subtle push-pull of adult flirtation needs no explanation. Then one day, I deliberately forgot to send his money. Alan waited all night before losing his cool. You are bored of me. He angrily refunded all the money I'd ever sent. Over $900 from 2 months. What a fool, letting me play him for so long without spending a dime. Time to give him a taste of honey after all that bitter medicine. I prepared a surprise for Alan, purposely opening my new music store near his college. To maintain an air of mystery, I'd never discussed my profession with Alan. The identity of being a music store owner should impress him. I messaged him. I'll see you today. Grand opening at the new music store today. Lots of students browsing. Maybe we'll run into each other. Alan. I suddenly overheard 3 guys chatting. You still haven't scored with that $14 lady? The bet ends in 3 days. Loser pays 50 grand. Shut up. Women like her come running with just a flick of my wrist. That deep, magnetic voice was unmistakable. Alan walked in with 2 other guys, arms draped around each other's shoulders, clearly close friends. All 3 were good-looking. Alan had the most innocent face. The one who called me $14 lady looked wilder. And the remaining one wore glasses with a scholarly vibe. Birds of a feather flock together. Or in this case, hot guys stick together. Who was it that promised to seal the deal in 3 months? Buy me a piano and we'll call it even. Alan smirked, waving his phone at them. See that? I get mad once, and she's immediately coming to find me. I hadn't expected this side of Alan. I thought he was an innocent puppy, but he turned out to be a sly dog. The audacity to bet he could sleep with me in 3 months. What a nasty game. But honestly, I kind of liked these bets. I'd wager I could get all 3 of them in 1 month. The trio spotted a piano they liked. Alan stood beside it, playing a few keys with one hand while texting me with the other. Like how it sounds? I'm at the music store. When are you coming? I'll play for you when we meet. I replied. On my way. Alan's lips curved into a smile. She's really coming to find me. If you guys want to buy quickly, don't hold me up. The 3 suddenly showed unexpected solidarity and hurriedly asked. Hey owner, how much is this one? I personally went over to assist them. When I appeared, the color drained from their faces. Alan froze, looking uncomfortable. The wild one leaning against the wall instinctively adjusted his posture. The one playing the piano paused momentarily, then stood up. I maintained a gentle smile. Hello, I'm the owner. Would you like me to tell you about this model? I spoke charismatically, Alan watching me intently the whole time. When I finished, Alan nervously asked. When did you get here? The other 2 exchanged glances, realizing who I was. Just arrived. Didn't you say you'd play for me when we met? I didn't expose him. The game had to continue. While Alan played nearby, I brought glasses of water to the other two guys. The wild one was Victor, the scholarly one Orville. As I handed Orville his cup, I deliberately let our fingers touch, leaning close to whisper, "You play better than he does." Orville glanced at me, withdrew his hand abruptly, and the cup crashed to the floor, water splashing all over my skirt. The music stopped. Alan, constantly watching us, stood up and looked at Orville. "What are you doing? Can't even hold a cup steady." Orville hesitated, saying nothing. I smiled. "It's fine, I'll go clean up in the restroom." At the door, I ran into the wild one. "I saw everything. You're hitting on Orville." I smiled at him. I wasn't. How could one comment be considered flirting? Victor stood with his hands in his pockets, smirking with bad boy charm. I normally wouldn't care, but Alan and Orville are my brothers. What happens if you mess up our friendship? From what I could tell, Victor was the leader of their trio, Orville the youngest, making Alan the middle one. Victor stepped closer, leaning down. "If you flirt with Orville again, I'm telling Alan." I looked up at him, almost touching his nose, my voice lilting. "What if I flirt with you? Would you tell on me then?" Before he could react, I grabbed his neck and kissed him. It happened so suddenly that Victor was pushed against the wall, looking down at me in shock, forgetting to push me away, until Orville's cold voice interrupted. "What are you two doing?" Victor finally snapped back to reality, prying my arms off, lipstick still on his mouth. "You!" He was furious. I patted his cheek. "That's our little secret, okay?" Victor's Adam's apple bobbed as he breathed rapidly. His face was burning hot. Alan quickly appeared. "Why is everyone gathered here?" Victor looked strange and didn't dare speak. I obediently walked to Alan's side, glancing at Orville. "He came to apologize, right?" Orville pressed his lips together and gave a slight nod, but he clearly wasn't happy, especially when looking at Victor. Not only had Victor done something sneaky, but now Orville had to cover for him. Alan glanced at Victor. "You have lipstick on your mouth." Victor panicked for a moment. I put on makeup today." Alan frowned but said nothing more. The three selected a piano, with Orville as the buyer, leaving his number. The bet continues. Alan and I went to see a movie together. In the flickering light of the screen, he secretly reached for my hand, his palms slightly sweaty. "Your hand is so soft," he whispered. I turned to look at him. In the dim, shifting light, his delicate features were even more captivating. He really was exactly my type. I leaned close to his ear and lowered my voice. "I want to feel your abs." Alan pressed his lips together awkwardly. "We're in public." I lost interest and pulled my hand away. Halfway through the movie, I went to the restroom and texted him that I had an emergency and had to leave. By the time Alan ran out after me, I was already in the elevator. When I got back to my store, my phone kept buzzing. "You wanted to touch me, and when I said no, you just left me." "Seriously? I only said we were in public, not that you couldn't. Why are you being like this? It's not like I said never. Can I have another chance? I'll do whatever you want." Long, elegant fingers paused over the piano keys. "Aren't you going to answer him?" Orville asked. Orville had beautiful long eyelashes. I bent down to look at him. "No need. I'd rather hear you play." Making an outrageous request had been the perfect excuse to escape. As soon as I left the theater, I'd called Orville. I told him there was a flaw in his piano that needed replacing, but that Alan and I were fighting, and I didn't want to see Victor either. "Could you come alone?" After a moment's hesitation, Orville agreed. I took him to the second floor of my music store, where the quiet atmosphere was perfect for getting closer. When the piano music slowly stopped, I sat down beside him and casually pressed a few keys. "Victor approached me this morning," I said. Orville stood up. "That has nothing to do with me." I grabbed his wrist. "It does. I said one thing to you, and he accused me of hitting on you. He threatened to tell Alan. I only kissed him because I was worried it would affect you." I let go of him. "If you don't believe me, ask Victor." Orville called Victor, who confirmed most of what I'd said. The only difference was that Victor claimed I kissed him first. Victor also quietly added, "Orville, don't tell Alan about this. He's really into that woman right now." "Got it. By the way, when are you coming back to the dorm?" "Alan's back and he's freaking out again. I'm getting tutored. Private lesson." Orville hung up and gave me a cold look. I pressed my lips together, my eyes full of reproach. Of course he'd say that. He forced me to kiss him. "And how is complimenting your piano playing, hitting on you?" Orville stared at me steadily, his voice flat. "It is." I was stunned. Orville sat down beside me. His long fingers covered my hand, gently pressing down on the piano keys, creating a monotonous melody. "I know you're trying to seduce me." He turned to face me expressionless. Not just last time. Now too. Meeting those cold eyes behind thin glasses, my palms began to sweat nervously. Apparently the quiet, well-behaved ones were the most dangerous to mess with. I unconsciously shifted backward. Orville noticed this, the corner of his mouth curving into the slightest smile. Suddenly, he grabbed my waist firmly and pulled me against him, his gaze locked on mine. So you can flirt with me, but why did you kiss Victor? My mind was in chaos, thoughts colliding. But I told the truth. I just didn't want him to tell Alan. Orville calmly accepted this explanation. He leaned in closer, his breath on my face. Stop playing with Alan. Play with me instead. He whispered in my ear. I'm more fun than he is. Orville wasn't lying. He was way more interesting than Alan. Right there on that piano bench, his kisses left me breathless. I didn't even know where my hands were going, our breathing growing heavier by the second. A seductive sound escaped from Orville's throat, like a purring kitten inviting you to pet its head. My phone suddenly rang. I glanced at it, Alan calling. I didn't answer. Orville saw it and reached over to decline the call, but Alan kept calling. Eventually we just ignored it, lost in the kissing. Orville pulled me onto his lap, the kiss growing more intense and all-consuming. Suddenly a dark, furious voice came from the doorway. What the fuck, Orville? This is your goddamn tutoring session. Alan kicked the door open. Victor's voice followed. Alan, calm down. Fuck you, Orville. You piece of shit. Orville and I snapped back to reality. He released me and lowered his head to fix his disheveled white shirt. Alan's eyes were bloodshot with rage. He charged forward and punched Orville. Have you no fucking shame? Blood appeared at the corner of Orville's mouth. But he didn't hit back. He stood his ground, slowly raising his eyes to stare at Alan, his voice low. She's not your girlfriend. Alan faltered. It was true, we weren't officially dating, but it still felt like Orville was in the wrong. I met her first. I introduced her to you. And now I get ditched at the movies while you're here making out with her? Screw this, I'm going to kill you. Victor wrapped his arms around the furious Alan. Alan, calm down. Orville's our best friend. I'm sure he didn't mean to. Alan turned to him in shock. Are you kidding me? How could this be an accident? What kind of friend makes out with someone's date? Victor fell silent, because he too had kissed me. I turned to leave. Alan immediately pushed Victor away and grabbed my wrist. Don't go. Where are you going? Didn't you come here to see me today? After a long pause, I opened my palm. I need to wash my hands. I was just holding, I trailed off suggestively. It took Alan a moment to understand. With utter disgust, he released my hand. He turned to glare at Orville, seething. You fucking asshole. Victor also looked at Orville, his face twisted in pain. Orville, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you have a fever or something? Orville remained calm. I have my advantages. You wouldn't understand. What the fuck kind of advantages? He turned around to find Alan searching for something to use as a weapon. Having no shame, Orville replied. Alan actually found a stick. He raised it high, but I rushed forward to shield Orville. Enough, I said. This isn't his fault. Alan met my eyes and lowered the stick, looking hurt. I wouldn't let you touch me, so you came back to touch him instead? He's so easy, and you're still protecting him. Orville frowned. And you still wanted to touch him? I said nothing. Victor took 2 steps back, glanced at me, and silently covered himself protectively. Alan confronted Orville again. You still have the nerve to talk. What's wrong with her touching me? Mind your own business, you homewrecker. Orville coldly repeated. She's not your girlfriend. We should compete fairly. Alan laughed bitterly. Compete? How can I compete when I show up a little late, and you've already got your pants half off? Compete with that? Fuck you. He grew angrier as he spoke, and picked up the stick again. I'm going to kill you today. Victor grabbed him again. Enough, Alan. Orville was tricked by this woman. I'll testify. This morning when you were still here, she tried to seduce Orville first. I narrowed my eyes at Victor. How dare he betray me? He was dead meat now. Alan stared at me in disbelief. So I hadn't even rejected you, and you were already eyeing him? I sat down calmly. Because I overheard you. I locked eyes with Alan. You made a bet about me. A bet that you could sleep with me within 3 months for $50,000. All 3 of them looked uncomfortable. Alan, you're guaranteed to lose your bet. I continued smiling. But I'll add $50,000 to bet that I can sleep with all 3 of you within 1 month. Orville's face instantly turned cold. Alan pressed his lips tightly together. That's not something to bet on. I leaned forward, raising an eyebrow. Why not? If you guys can bet, why can't I? Only Victor walked to Alan's side, confidently putting his hand on his shoulder. What are you afraid of? We'll definitely win. I don't believe it. Just try to get me if you can. Alan looked at Orville's side, then turned to Victor. Are you sure you can handle this? Victor leaned forward, meeting my eyes. He pointed at his lower region. Listen, if I can't control this thing, I'll cut it off myself. Alan jumped in surprise. That's a bit extreme. I immediately stood up, smiling. Perfect. It's settled then. $100,000 in you as my trophy. Victor silently pulled the other two in front of him. Protect me. He looked at Alan and Orville again. Actually, I'd better protect myself. I lowered my head and laughed softly. Victor grabbed Alan with one hand and Orville with the other, ready to leave with his brothers. Alan shook him off, still staring at me, his tone pathetic. What about us? Victor's face darkened. There is no us. I spoke seriously. Alan, I was actually considering dating you seriously before. But you were the first to make this kind of bet, so I've decided I won't consider you as boyfriend material anymore. My response was sincere. During these 2 months, I'd put a lot of effort into pursuing Alan. Not to mention the 70+ different outfits I'd worn to create the right ambience. Every day, I'd skip driving and walk 500 meters in 4-inch heels through the subway station. Over 30,000 steps total, coming home with aching feet. I'd even located my new music store here for him. And in return, he'd made a $50,000 bet about me. $50,000 wasn't even enough to buy me a pair of shoes. Alan looked utterly dejected, his eyes rimmed with red. I'm sorry, but I really didn't mean to. It wasn't my idea. Victor, unable to stand it anymore, grabbed him by the hair and dragged him away. Stop looking at her and look at your brother instead. Orville gave me a cold look, then turned and left. I grabbed my phone and chased after him to the door. Wait, can I add you as a friend? I stared at him quietly, my heart pounding. This was my first time asking a guy for his contact info. Orville's expression remained cold, not saying a word. Victor looked confused, his tone uncertain. You two already kissed but haven't added each other? What kind of super private messaging app are you using? Alan suddenly popped out from behind Victor, glaring at Orville with hostility. I remember now. That day when I went back bragging about you, he insisted you weren't interested in me, and were just brushing me off. Then as we kept arguing, that's when the bet started. This whole thing is his jealous scheme. While I was staring at Orville in shock, he took out his phone and simply said, sure. Alan nearly lunged at me. Don't add him. Victor quickly grabbed him. Stop with your conspiracy theories. After the three of them left, still arguing, I made a surprising discovery. I had already added Orville 3 years ago, but there was no nickname, no group classification, no chat history. I had absolutely no memory of it. Not wanting to change the subject, I pretended this revelation didn't exist and messaged him. We were so close. After a while my screen lit up. Yeah. I stared at that emotionless, yeah, biting my lip hard as my heart raced uncontrollably in my chest. He really knew how to play it cool. Can I ask you out? I texted. Is this about winning? I'll give you $200,000 if you leave Victor alone. Sounds like you think I'll win. You'll be upset if you lose. I couldn't help smiling. With such a thoughtful comment, he must be planning to say yes. After quite a while, Orville sent another message. I'll be upset if you win. My typing fingers froze. I frowned slightly because my next line was going to be, I refuse. What, do I look that easy to you? I wrote. Yeah, never met anyone more casual than you. Oh, just so you know, I'm bigger than both of them. I literally spat out my water and went completely silent. Excuse me, who asked you that? Who asked for a ranking of you three? Does anyone here even care? I quietly typed. Age? Orville. Keep pretending. My attempt at deflection failed. After a completely pointless conversation, he had me blushing like I'd done something wrong. Alan seemed sunny and cute, while Orville looked cold and distant. But surprisingly, chatting with Orville was way more interesting than with Alan. Since I couldn't get Orville to meet up, I needed to think carefully about how to win this bet in the month I had. First, I bought scissors for Victor, then posted a selfie with the scissors on social media. Both Alan and Orville liked it. Suddenly Alan added me to a 3-person group chat named Immovable Mountain. A message popped up. Starting today, 30 days until settlement. Daily reports on whether everyone is living up to the group name. Wait, why were there 4 people? Alan, who else did you add? Orville. I recognize that profile pic. It's that woman. Alan, what's wrong with you? Didn't you tell me to add everyone involved? Alan quickly followed with a welcome message, complete with flower and heart emojis. The group went silent for a moment. Eventually, Orville copied and pasted Alan's message. Victor. Well, since she's here, let's face this head on. You can watch yourself lose. Victor rallied the troops. Brothers united, sharp as steel, together against the bad woman. Orville and Alan copied. Brothers united, sharp as steel, together against the bad woman. While the 3 of them were being all dramatic, the bad woman, in question, received a private message from Alan. I'm your inside man, hee. Accompanied by a gif of a happy dog wagging its tail. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow and smile. It seemed Alan was willing to meet up. But winning this bet depended on the most reluctant guy among the 3. Besides Alan, both Orville and Victor were unwilling, especially Victor. He had bet everything and would never agree. I needed to lower his guard. I had someone call Orville. Hello, your piano is packed and ready. We'll have it delivered to your address. Orville gave his address, his voice soft and clear. I'm not home, but someone's there. I'll have them sign for it. After hanging up, I took the address and went to deliver the piano. Victor and his friends weren't living in the college dorms, but had rented a large flat off campus. I rang the doorbell, and Victor opened the door wearing nothing but underwear. Wow, great body. My eyes widened involuntarily. Victor had a toothbrush in his mouth, and when he groggily saw it was me, he cursed and slammed the door shut. When he reopened it, he was wearing a shirt and sweatpants, arms crossed. Damn, you really had the nerve to show up here. I'm not like those two, acting like they've never seen a woman before. Please leave. I'm very sorry for any lonely nights I may have caused you. When he finally finished his speech, I stepped aside and gestured behind me. I'm here to deliver the piano. Didn't Orville tell you? Only then did Victor notice the delivery guys, who had been waiting through his entire rant. He hesitated, then said, Come in, come in. The view opened up impressively, a panoramic river view and luxurious decor. They had a huge music room with special soundproofing, filled with instruments, guitars, violins, cellos, drums, and a piano. You guys already have a piano. Why buy another one? That's Orville's old one. He wanted a new one. He turned to look at me. Why do you care? So nosy. Once the piano was set up, Victor ushered me out. Go on, get out. Everyone else left, but I sat down on the living room couch. Victor kept his distance. Why aren't you leaving? Orville asked me to wait for him. I leaned back comfortably. Victor's eyes were highly suspicious and confused. Why would he want you to wait? I propped my chin on my hand and winked at him. Maybe because... Victor froze. When he realized what I was implying, his face contorted. No, Orville isn't that kind of person. You're the one leading him astray. You have no shame. Victor actually ran off, even locking his bedroom door behind him, as if I could really do something to him. 30 minutes later, I knocked on Victor's door. He opened it just a crack, taking off his headphones. What? Is Orville back? I smiled, holding up takeout. You haven't had breakfast, right? Victor looked down at the food and swallowed. Not hungry. He started to close the door. I quickly grabbed the edge. Come on, just take it and eat. I won't come in. Victor stared at me, his tone hesitant. You're being awfully persistent. Did you drug it? I was speechless. No wonder he was single. I went back to the living room and continued playing on my phone. A hand pulled the takeout I'd left at the door inside. Not long after, Victor came out. How much? I'll transfer you the money. Without looking up, I said. No need. Consider it payment for that kiss. From above me came Victor's voice, suppressing anger. That's all it was worth? One breakfast. I looked up at him and said honestly, based on that experience, it wasn't even worth the breakfast. If it had been Orville's kiss, I'd buy him a whole building. Victor froze, mumbling. Bad experience. He collapsed onto the couch like he'd been hit by disaster, elbows on his knees and fingertips supporting his chin. Bad experience. After a moment of silence, I poked his shoulder. Stop repeating that. Are you okay? It was just a 1-second lip touch. How much of an experience could it be? Victor suddenly turned to look at me, his expression changing from disbelief to sudden realization. He burst out laughing. I get it now. You're doing this on purpose. You're trying to use reverse psychology to get me to kiss you again, so you can seduce me and accomplish your sinister goal. He startled me so much I backed away and accidentally fell off the couch onto the floor. Such dirty tactics, Victor said, hands in his pockets looking down at me. Just then the front door opened. Orville stood in the entryway, expressionless as he looked at us, his thin lips pressed into a straight line. Victor casually stepped back. Orville, you're back. Why did you have her wait here? She just tried to seduce me, but luckily I have an iron will. Orville's eyes narrowed slightly, his tone neither warm nor cold. Yeah, I asked her to wait. He walked over, taking off his coat, crouched beside me, gave me a cool glance, and draped his coat over my legs. With one arm around my waist and the other under my knees, he lifted me onto the couch. I instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck, all my attention on Orville. From this angle looking up, I could see his Adam's apple move silently, his collarbone disappearing into the shadow of his shirt. Behind his thin glasses, his eyes were incredibly focused, and his body temperature was perfect. As he was about to put me down, his movements slowed. He leaned down close and whispered almost inaudibly, "Whatever else, I'm happy to see you when I got back." His warm breath brushed my ear, making my heart sink. I looked up at him, stunned, my fingertips unconsciously gripping his coat tightly. Orville smiled slightly. He put me down and turned to Victor, his voice dissatisfied. "Don't push her onto the floor." So he thought Victor had pushed me. Victor protested on the spot. "I didn't push her. She's faking it. Orville ignored him and poured me a glass of water. Have you thought about why I asked you to wait? I sat beside him, holding the water with both hands, my heart pounding. The piano arrived. Don't you want to try it? He turned to look at me, his expression cold. Together. Then he walked away. I stood up, staring at his back, down the water, took a deep breath, and followed him into the music room. As soon as I entered, he pressed me against the wall and kissed me. Something cold touched my chest as his tall figure leaned over me, gripping my waist firmly as he kissed me. After what seemed like forever, when both of us were breathless, Orville finally released me. In the dim room, I leaned against the door, looking up at his heaving breaths as he stared down at me. You knew I wasn't home. I tilted my head with a half smile. I didn't do anything with him that would upset you. Orville's fingers twirled my curly hair as he narrowed his eyes, his thin lips barely moving. You're so bad. I reached up to touch his head. Orville smiled, leaning forward to bury his face in the crook of my neck. Just as I was enjoying the moment, someone started banging on the door. First it was Victor's voice. Orville, are you in what's her name again? Then Alan. Get out of the way. Orville, I heard you're back. Did you take her in there with you? Open the door, open up. Orville looked up, his expression cold, eyes darkening. He ran his fingertip across my lips, and was about to open the door when I grabbed his hand, lowered my chin and gestured with my eyes. Your glasses. Orville glanced down, his breathing slightly uneven. He looked away, slowly extending his fingers to grasp his thin-framed glasses, and quickly turned around. I pressed my hand to my chest, looking at him with an amused smile. He'd been so aggressive putting them in, but now he was too embarrassed to take them out. I'm gonna kick this door down if you don't open it. The door opened, and Orville appeared perfectly composed. We were trying out the piano. Victor held Alan back. See, I told you Orville wouldn't betray us. Alan lowered his raised foot and walked up to us, examining us closely for any suspicious signs. He suddenly leaned in, staring at me intensely before saying through gritted teeth, Your lipstick's gone. He practically kissed it all off. Orville pulled me behind him. Alan, you're scaring her. Alan glared at him hatefully. We agreed to resist together. Do you even know what you're doing? Both Orville and Alan insisted on walking me home. Alan told me to choose one of them to escort me back. I looked at Orville. I liked him but couldn't quite figure him out. Then I looked at Alan, easier to handle. But I chose Victor. Victor, who'd been watching from a distance, widened his eyes in disbelief. Me. Alan was about to say something when Orville covered his mouth from behind, tilting his head with a faint smile at me. Victor it is then. I followed Victor downstairs. He told me to wait by the curb, and after what felt like forever, he showed up looking completely different, riding a motorcycle that roared up to me. I stood in stunned silence for a full minute. Holy crap, what kind of bike is that? In the darkness, Victor removed his helmet, revealing his sharp features as he gave me a lazy look. It's a motorcycle, sweetheart. Very expensive. My face turned completely black. Victor tossed me a helmet and leaned forward on his bike, his tone extremely impatient. Hey, are you getting on or what? You're the one who insisted I take you home. Clutching the heavy helmet and looking at him with a complicated expression, I swung my leg over and sat down, resigned to my fate. But my skirt was too short, exposing a good portion of my legs. Victor looked back at me, the corner of his mouth curling up as he said smugly, Wow, if you don't cover those legs, we're gonna cause a pile-up on the road. He produced a jacket from somewhere, and helped me tie it around my waist, then fixed my helmet and tapped the top. Hold on tight. I looked at him through the helmet visor, thinking to myself, I will. Leaning forward, I wrapped my arms around his waist. Halfway through, my foot slipped and my body wobbled. Victor looked back down, his tone serious. Take your heels off. I removed my high heels, holding them in my hand and looking around. But where do I put them? I'll take them. Victor unzipped his jacket, took my heels, and tucked them inside before zipping back up. I was stunned for a moment before wrapping my arms around his waist, thinking that this rich boy was actually pretty considerate. I recognized Victor's bike as worth hundreds of thousands, but that wasn't unusual at the music school where rich kids were common. Back when Alan was busking in the underground mall, he somehow managed to look like he didn't need the money, which is why I deliberately tossed him $1. And then there was Orville with his top-tier mysterious vibe that made my body tingle whenever we talked. Victor looked straight ahead as he pulled down his helmet, the corner of his lips curving slightly. Let's go. In an instant, the engine roared to life. He drove so fast that the wind whistled past my ears. I pressed tightly against Victor's back, clearly feeling the young man's spine. I couldn't help but lower my head, tightening my arms around him as my heart raced. If my health bar were visible above my head, it would probably be flickering dangerously low. At several red lights, I bumped into his back. Victor glanced back at me. When we finally reached my place, I stumbled off the bike, removed my helmet, and sat down on the steps, looking completely drained. What's wrong with you? I was full of frustration, and had to look up. When I met his eyes, the curse words that were about to escape died on my lips. Victor had just taken off his helmet, his fingers running through his bangs to push them back, revealing more intense features, as he looked down at me with confusion. Nothing, I said. Whatever. No point arguing with him. Victor pulled my high heels from inside his jacket, comparing their size with his hand, before placing them beside my feet. These were killing me. 10-centimeter heels? You're hardcore. You don't get it. It's the golden height. I bent down to put my shoes on, but my hands were too sweaty to get a good grip. Victor crouched in front of me, held my ankle, and helped me put them on in seconds. There. Get up. He pulled me to my feet. Go home. You even got taller. I rolled my eyes. After walking a short distance, I flipped my long hair back and turned to look at him, gently pressing my lips together. Hey, do you want to come up for a drink? Victor was about to get back on his bike, helmet tucked under his arm. He turned to meet my eyes. A drink? You're hitting on me. He coldly put on his helmet and narrowed his eyes at me. I'm not drinking anything of yours. The engine roared and he shot off. I stood there, yawned, and turned to go upstairs. I hadn't even made a move yet. Why was he acting so defensive? My phone was full of messages from Alan. Victor doesn't have a bike. I was trying to tell you that, but Orville covered my mouth. Orville isn't a good person. I'm the one who cares about you most. What do you even like about him besides his shamelessness? Unlike Alan's chatter in Orville's chat window, there was just one new message. Was it exciting? My fingertips hovered over the screen, not moving. Was he talking about the motorcycle? As if reading my mind, another message suddenly appeared. I mean Victor. You got to hold him. My heart skipped a beat. Just as I was about to type a reply, Orville's profile picture enlarged, bouncing on the screen. He was calling. Home safe? Victor's back now. I hadn't asked about him. That's exactly who you want to ask about. The static on the line paused, followed by a breathy laugh. What I want to ask is why you didn't choose me to take you home. I was silent for a moment. Why didn't I choose him? Perhaps because Orville seemed too perfect for me, like a product specifically designed for me. I had a feeling that if I got too close to him, I might fall hard. But I only said, I was afraid of winning too quickly. Hopefully he couldn't tell I was lying. Orville seemed to laugh on the other end. His voice was clear as he deliberately slowed his words. That's nonsense. It doesn't happen that fast. I curved my lips into a smile, gripping my phone tightly as I lay back on the bed, ready for a long chat. Suddenly there was a commotion on his end. Victor had returned home. I dropped her off. She actually asked me to come upstairs. Good thing it was me. You two would have definitely gone up. Alan's voice was even louder. Don't say that. She only talks to you because she wants to win the bet. Victor fired back. Oh, so she wants a relationship with you? An abrupt beep sounded in my ear. Orville had hung up. I was stunned for a moment, sat up, and scrolled through my phone. Feeling bored, I replied to Alan's messages. Don't talk about him like that. Alan responded with a string of ellipses. I didn't think there was anything wrong with Orville. In fact, I had a thing for guys who were cold on the outside but warm on the inside. When I first saw Orville, I thought he'd be well-behaved but boring. But when he showed his other side, I felt my heart racing out of control. The more forward he was, the more attracted I felt. That night I dreamed about Orville. He was sitting by a second-floor window, intently playing the piano. His long fingers moved continuously, producing beautiful notes from his fingertips. After some time he stopped and turned to look at me, his voice cool. Together? It sent shivers down my spine. This month wasn't just about the bet. It was also the grand opening month for my new piano store. The entrance was decorated with dozens of congratulatory flower arrangements. While I was having coffee with a friend at the store, Alan showed up alone. Isn't that the guy from the photos you showed me? My friend immediately recognized Alan. Alan smiled brightly. I put down my coffee and stood up. I'm not pursuing him anymore. My friend looked surprised, eyeing Alan. That's a shame. He's cute. I took Alan to another room. What are you doing here? Alan looked at me with puppy dog eyes. 3 days have passed. I lost my bet. Now I owe Orville $50,000. I nodded. And, Alan watched my expression, his tone slightly dejected. I've messed everything up. You don't like me anymore. And I have to pay up. I came to apologize. I'm sorry. I couldn't help but laugh, stepping back to look him up and down. My bet isn't over yet, you know? Alan blushed, clearing his throat softly. Victor says he's doing all this for me. If I dare go through with it, he'll cut me off first. Then you should go, I said without hesitation. I won't force you. Alan stood motionless, opening and closing his mouth. Maybe you should just give up. You won't win. Victor is really hard to pursue. I asked amused, have you tried? He's so clueless about romance. Not like me, gentle, caring, and obedient. Victor clueless about romance? The man who was willing to tuck my high heels into his jacket? When Alan refused to leave, I opened the door and left first. The store manager happened to be looking for me at the entrance. Boss, it seems the piano from the first day hasn't been paid for. I was about to speak when Alan overheard. Is it Orville's? How much? I'll pay for him. The manager smiled at him. $520,000. Alan was preparing to pay when I held his hand and turned to the manager. Put that on my account. It's a gift. The manager left and Alan stood frozen. What's wrong? I asked, noticing his uncomfortable expression. Alan grabbed my wrist, staring at me directly, his voice growing increasingly angry. A $520,000 piano? You gave it to him the first time you met. When you first met me, you only gave me $1, and you've never spent a cent on me since. I pried his hand away with a sigh. But I've never touched you either. I can fix that. Without another word, Alan took off his shirt and guided my hand to his abs. I instinctively gasped, feeling them briefly before pulling my hand back. Don't do that. I picked up his clothes from the floor. Alan looked down at me nervously. Is it because I'm not in good enough shape? But Orville and I are about the same. Orville's flirting was perfectly calibrated, not this reckless shirt-ripping approach. I looked away, handing him his shirt. Put it back on. It's the middle of the day. Alan didn't take it. I've already taken it off. Won't you feel a little more? Just then the door opened again. The air froze. My friend was the first to break the silence. Wow. I thought you guys were just talking. Beside her stood a man in a suit whose gaze fell on Alan's upper body. He lightly adjusted his cufflinks and frowned. Boyfriend. I shoved the shirt into Alan's arms and walked toward the door. No. What are you doing here? Let's talk somewhere else. Alan put his shirt back on and followed. I'm just not her boyfriend yet. At those words, the man who was about to ignore him suddenly stopped, coolly glanced at him, and extended his hand. Norman. Alan said casually, Alan. Norman held his hand, and turned to raise an eyebrow at me. Won't you introduce us? Alan, my friend. I said, my voice faltering slightly. Norman, my ex-husband. Alan's face froze. He tried to pull his hand back, his arm stiffening, but my ex-husband Norman held on, smiling for a moment, before finally releasing his hand.